How's it going? Welcome back, my beautiful sinners, to another great and majestical, moist video with your boy, the Savior. That's right, welcome back to the channel. And today, boys, that's right, we are discussing Rick and Morty Season 5, okay? Now, I said I was done with Rick and Morty, but when Season 5 came out, I just had to watch it. I had to give it a try because I am an old school fan of Rick and Morty. Season 1 to Season 2 were really great in my opinion, and then from Season 3 it all kind of went downhill. And now Rick and Morty Season 5 sucks, okay? Rick and Morty Season 5 is terrible. It's absolute garbage if you ask me, okay? So I'm gonna get into the reasons why I think this. Now, let me just say first of all that this is just my opinion. Now, you may agree with me or you may disagree with me, that's fine. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Bear that in mind before you light your torches and get your pitchforks and come after me, okay? Maybe actually think for yourself and understand that actually, wow, we're all individuals. Wow, we can all have different opinions. Wow, we can have discussions about that. Isn't that a good thing? Don't resort to tribalism, don't resort to tribal thinking. I don't care if you like it. If you like Rick and Morty Season 5, good for you. Well done, Sonny Jim. I hope you have such a fun time watching it, okay? And maybe this video isn't for you, but if you want to hear the reasons why Rick and Morty Season 5 sucks, and why Rick and Morty Season 5 is the worst season of Rick and Morty, then stick around, okay? If you enjoyed this video, my sinners, make sure to smash like and subscribe if you're new, which is highly likely. Wow, Savior, I didn't know you made music. Really? Wow. No longer will my life be crippled by existential dread, because I'll know that Rick and Morty will exist forever. It's never gonna stop, baby. And do you know why? That's because they signed a contract which means they're gonna produce Rick and Morty for a very long time, and that's never gonna get stale. They're never gonna run out of ideas. I wonder why they want to make so much Rick and Morty. Is it because they really care about the creative passion like they did to begin with, and the writing team is super passionate about Rick and Morty? Or is it because they make tons and tons of money? Let's think. I for one hate when you stifle creativity for the pursuit of wealth, because wealth doesn't measure happiness. That's why I hate these YouTubers who only focus on content that will make them the most money. Rick and Morty needs to stop, okay? I honestly think Rick and Morty now needs to stop, because Rick and Morty Season 5 is just so terrible. It's just truly bad. Rick and Morty Season 5 is bad. We also know that the writing staff and the people who are making Rick and Morty have changed a lot, okay? It's not the same team. Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland aren't involved. They aren't involved in Rick and Morty as much as they were. That is why we see so many boring filler episodes that don't really seem to go anywhere. So the real reason why Rick and Morty Season 5 sucks, okay, is the writing, is the story development, is the characters, pretty much everything that makes a show, okay? It's become so stagnant and stale now with ridiculous episodes, okay? I loved the original Rick and Morty because it made me laugh, it made me go, what the F? But now nothing is surprising because they've taken the element of surprise out of the episodes. Basically, they fill it with so much over-the-top, wow, you've just been bamboozled kind of stuff. It ceases to have an effect when it becomes so common. All of the wacky stuff that we first saw in Season 1 with all of these creative ideas that they gave each episode, we don't get that anymore. They don't seem to really go on adventures, Rick and Morty. It's basically just watching a dysfunctional family. But what made Rick and Morty great originally was the fact that you could relate to it. You could relate to the cynical nature of Rick, and Morty was such an interesting character because he was innocent, he was naive, and he was surprised by everything that Rick did. Basically, Morty was kind of like the viewer. The thing that really sucks now with Rick and Morty Season 5 is now the episodes don't follow a normal narrative where they go on an adventure. Some kind of development happens, you know, there's something that happens in the start, there's some consequence to that in the middle, and then there's a satisfying closure to the episode. There's nothing like that anymore. It doesn't follow a good narrative path anymore. It's just all over the place. The characters aren't interesting to watch anymore because they've all just become like Rick, absolutely cynical and disgusting, and none of them are really enjoyable to watch anymore. Morty has lost all of his unique innocent charm, and I understand that's the point because spending so much time with Rick makes you basically a complete psychopath. The way the show now just deals with violence and, you know, big consequences, and the characters just all shrug it off like it's nothing, it doesn't feel like any of it is really having any kind of impact, and they're all just a bunch of psychopaths because they don't care anymore. None of the characters seem to care about what's going on. It's just, you know, over the top, wacky stuff constantly thrown in your face. The jokes are terrible now, they're not even funny. Instead of making an interesting storyline and having consequence and actions and character development like we used to see, now it's all random cutaways and, you know, just quick slapstick cheap laughs, kind of like Family Guy. It's almost like a Family Guy type of humor, which of course appeals more to the masses, but to me Rick and Morty was never about that. You might say, Savior, you're over analyzing Rick and Morty, and yes, I know it's just a funny TV show, but it's not even a funny TV show anymore. It's all just random. Seems like they improv pretty much everything. None of the characters make any sense anymore. They don't follow their character path, and they all basically have just become nihilistic little Ricks. And there aren't really any creative ideas anymore. I mean, there are so many just terrible parts with the new Rick and Morty, where it's just like a terrible joke, like with the dragon, or with the space snakes that just drag on for way too long, or they have these interesting cool moments that could be cool when Rick invents the save game device for Morty, and they do a little section of that where you show him basically being a complete psychopath because he doesn't think there's going to be consequence, and instead of making that a meaningful and interesting episode on its own, it's just cut into, you know, like this kind of terrible montage, but none of it feels impactful or meaningful or, you know, anything like that, because it's all just cut together so quickly. It just seems like they want to cram as much as they possibly can in an episode in the hopes that the viewers don't realize that nothing is actually really happening, it's all just filler. And to me, that is just so boring. You can go back and watch an episode from season 1 and then compare it to season 5, and you will see the massive difference that they have, okay, with the style of writing, the type of jokes, the slow story development, and the character development. None of that exists anymore. It's all just hollow jokes, way over the top action, and, you know, bombastic stuff happening 24/7. Compare that to some episodes in season 1, for example, or season 2, or when Rick builds a miniature universe and then competes with his god complex, or any of that kind of stuff. We don't see those interesting ideas anymore, and all of the characters have just become so stagnant and boring because they're all just a bunch of vicious monsters now. They all have a massive amount of plot armor, which leads to it feeling not having any kind of consequence or any kind of enjoyability to watch. It would be okay if it was like this, but it was at least funny, but it's not even funny anymore. So that's why I hate Rick and Morty Season 5. I personally think Rick and Morty Season 5 is the worst season of Rick and Morty, and those are my reasons why. You might disagree. Rick and Morty had some really amazing emotional episodes before in the past, where Morty has to bury himself and Rick deals with a huge breakup, but now it just seems like all of them have no emotions anymore because it's all just become so cynical to the point where it's not even a fun kind of cynicism. Thanks for watching, my sinners. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash like, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.